Greetings, everyone. This is Chris Dixon, and welcome back to another episode and discussion here on the Tunnel Vision podcast. Hope you all are doing good and well today. On this particular episode and discussion, I'm going to be going into the basics of summoning spirits, okay? And pretty much just I want to talk about the importance of understanding the proper approaches, that you need to take, before you begin to work with spirits. I'm going to talk about the importance of understanding the difference between invocations and evocations, okay? I'm going to also be going into detail on incantations as well, and their importance as it pertains to the practice of magic. So that's pretty much what I'm going to be building on for today's episode and lesson. All right. This message, of course, applies to everyone on this path, regardless of where you're at. You can be a beginner and just now getting into the practice, going deeper into your journey, and you may have now discovered that you want to work with spirits, okay? So this information will be very valuable to you and helpful, but it's also helpful for those that are intermediates and even adepts, okay? So when I'm teaching, I'm talking to everybody, because I know it's not just beginners that are listening to me. I know it's some intermediates and even some master adepts that's been on this path for many years, that may chime in, and listen in. So, when I teach, I'm talking to everybody, because this is a path of consistent growth and consistent learning. And it's about, correcting mistakes and, learning from other practitioners, gaining ideas and insight from other practitioners, regardless of where they're at in their practice, and pretty much just utilize insight from other practitioners, to grow and evolve, and get better, on this path, right? So that's what this path is about, and that's the beauty of it. Just always seeking, to go to the next level, spiritually, and get better at your magical practice, so to speak. So that's pretty much this particular lesson, what it's going to be about. So first, I want to start off by going into what an invocation is. An invocation pretty much is when you summon and call upon a spirit or a deity to operate from within you, all right, to carry out an internal task, so to speak. Invocations are commonly associated with shadow work and self reflection type of workings, all right? So, working with deities that are good for shadow work and helping you deal with things internally within you that you struggle with. So doing invocations to specific spirits and deities of that particular nature is where invocations are commonly associated with. All right. So shadow work and self-reflection. And they're also good for channeling and divination sessions. Okay, so you can invoke a particular deity or spirit who can assist you with divination. All right. Um, and of course, spirits, reveal information to you via telepathy. So if your clairaudience is online and you're able to hear through your senses, the wisdom and insight that spirits give to you, this is a form of invocation. Okay, so you can invoke a spirit for a channeling session. You can invoke a spirit for a meditation session. If you're seeking a particular vision, you can invoke a spirit for that particular practice, all right, or experience, so to speak. So those are just some examples of what invocations are utilized for. Okay, so invocations are associated for inner work and dealing with things internally. Okay, evocation, on the other hand, is when you summon and call upon a spirit slash deity to carry out an external task on your behalf. So evocations are very good for protection against any type of negative energy of any degree. If you're dealing with people who are negative and are creating opposition against you, evocations for protection and dispelling those things is very good to use an evocation for. If you're seeking to attract more financial wealth and abundance, or just financial assistance, you can evoke a spirit for finances, and you may find some money laying on the ground. It can be $10, it can be $20, things of that nature. So if you need some groceries, or if you need some gas in your car, a spirit can help you attract financial abundance, to help you deal with the things that you need, right? If you're seeking to find new friends, better friendships, like-minded connections into your life, evoking a deity that can assist with relationships can help you with that. All right. So those are some examples of what evocations are utilized for. So evocations are connected with dealing with things externally, okay, and things of that nature. All right. Incantations. Incantations are pretty much magical spells, okay, that's pretty much directed at pulling in a certain result. Okay, so incantations are normally done in foreign languages, okay, other than the English language. Okay, so languages like Latin, Hebrew, Sanskrit, Aramaic, Swahili, etc. Incantations are done in other languages, and what makes incantations very powerful is because foreign languages carry, very powerful frequencies, okay, um, that sometimes the English language itself lacks, all right. So for an example, Latin is a very powerful language to use for incantations, okay. um, Catholic priests, utilize Latin um, when they're doing exorcists on people. If a person has a negative entity, latched onto them, they utilize Latin because Latin is a language of light. Okay, Latin and Hebrew are both languages of light. Okay, and due to the fact that they carry such high frequencies, negative spirits leave, very quickly. Okay, because the frequency is very high within those two particular languages. Okay, so Latin is very good for dealing with negative energy, dispelling negative, spirits, that and Hebrew. But they're also good for, just creating your affirmations in, right? Using Google Translate is the go-to, for creating incantations, okay? So writing out your incantations, having yourself a magical journal, okay, where you create your personal incantations, okay, in other languages, and pretty much just reciting them, daily. So it's very good to have a magical journal, with your incantations in there, sigils, and just anything pertaining to your magic, personally created rituals. Those are the most powerfulest rituals, which are the ones that you personally create yourself, okay? So you can write out your affirmations and, the things that you want to manifest in your life. Of course, write them out as if you have already manifested them, right? Always keep that in mind. And pretty much just utilizing another language, that you don't primarily speak, so to speak. So incantations are very powerful in the practice of magic, all right? And I have 3 personally created templates. One is an invocation template, an evocation template, and a personal incantation of mine that deals with dispelling, anger and any type of low emotion that you may be feeling. So I'm going to share these with you all. I'm going to also post it in the description box of this particular episode so that you all can see for yourself how they are crafted. All right. But before I get into these 3 templates, I want to go into some important concepts to take into consideration before you begin working with spirits. When you start working with spirits, of course, it's very important to approach them with respect, right? One mistake that I have learned on my path that I've corrected is you never want to, when you go into your invocations and evocations, you never want to command a spirit, okay? A lot of occultists, believe in doing that because it shows dominance and power over the particular spirit or deity, and pretty much it shows, you know, just overall power and dominance, so to speak. If that works for you, I'm not telling you to stop, but I have personally found that it is not necessary to command spirits to do your requests, because commanding to a degree is somewhat, like bullying, trying to bully a spirit to do your requests. Spirits are not, they're not just beings that you can just go to whenever you want to, and they automatically just line up and do what you want them to do when you want them to do it. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't work that way. Spirits have their own personalities, ways of doing things, and they also have boundaries, like we do, and not every spirit is going to want to help you, okay? Some spirits may not resonate with you, at all. So those are just some things to take into consideration. So, when you approach spirits, approach them with respect. You're not making yourself inferior to them. Approach them with confidence, of course, but approach them, with respect, right? Because they don't have to help you, with anything. So take that into consideration. Very important concept to consider. When you're doing your invocations and your evocations, you ask them, right? You ask with confidence, so to speak. You don't ask, in a inferior, way, or in a way of servitude, so to speak. But you ask, with the confidence and the expectancy that they will do it, so to speak. So that's a concept that I have corrected on my journey, because I used to believe in exercising control in that particular manner, and I learned that it was not necessary to do. And things can even go in another direction by approaching them in that manner, because I know none of us as individuals, we don't appreciate people trying to bully us into doing something we don't want to do, pressuring us to do things that we don't want to do. So keep that same approach to spirits. You know what I'm saying? I know for certain nobody will want to work for a boss who is constantly demanding that you do this and that and the other, and approaching you with disrespect, consistently day in and day out. Eventually you're gonna quit, you know what I'm saying? Or you're gonna spaz out, at your job, right? Because eventually you're gonna get tired of it, being approached that way. So approach spirits with respect. You know what I'm saying? Yes, you are in control of your spirituality, you're in control of the ritual, but you also have to understand that respect is very important in the ritual, and these particular spirits and deities, these are higher intelligences that operate outside of the physical dimension or the physical realm that we are living in right now, so to speak. or living on, so to speak, whatever way you want to look at it. So understand, the importance of respect, when you approach spirits, okay? The next thing is, offerings. Offerings are very essential in working with spirits, okay? Because they are going to want something in exchange for them helping you, okay? They may not always require an offering, okay? The more that you work with them and develop a personal relationship with them, sometimes they may say that they don't need an offering, okay? So when you give offerings, don't give it because you feel that is mandatory. You give it because you want to do it. You give it because it's coming from the heart. You know what I'm saying? So you don't have to be extra with your giving. Incense will do. Candy. They enjoy candy. Alcohol. Whether it be tequila or whiskey or even wine. Okay. So you can pour, alcohol into your offering bowl on your altar. Or if you are a drinker, you can have your glass of wine or, a shot of whiskey, that can do. Tobacco is another good offering that you can give. You can burn a cigar, or you can burn a cigarette. Some deities enjoy cigarettes. So tobacco as a whole is a good offering to give. So those are some common examples that you can give for an offering, okay? Very essential, when working with spirits, okay? What else? Playing music, during your ritual will also enhance the power of the ritual. And it will also set, the proper mindset for the ritual before you begin. Before you go into a ritual to work with a spirit, you want to make sure that you are in the proper mindset. So playing some slow meditation music, classical music, Middle Eastern type of music, those type of genres of music are very good for setting a good mindset before the ritual, okay? Another important thing to consider is before you do your ritual, like if you're doing it at home, at your altar, you want to make sure that you are cleansed before you begin. So make sure that you bathe and shower before you begin your rituals, okay? Make sure that you don't have pets around, kids are in another room settled, it'll be even better if they're asleep. If you have children, it'll be even better if they're asleep, okay? So you want to make sure that you are cleansed, very good, and you want to make sure that any distraction is completely out of the way, okay? Very important thing to consider as well, okay? So those are some things that I wanted to put out. It's always good to write out your request so that you don't stumble over words. But if you feel that you can do a ritual or a request by just simply, talking and letting it flow naturally, you can do it that way. But I also find it very beneficial to write out your requests, okay? And be very specific in what it is you want and be clear and direct. Okay, you don't have to write out a whole paragraph, a letter, you know, of what you want to happen for yourself or what you're seeking from the spirit. Keep it fairly short, and directly to the point. Okay, because spirits already know what you are seeking before you even come to them, so you don't have to waste your time writing out a whole 2-page letter. You know what I'm saying? Completely unnecessary. So keep it, very direct and plain. Okay. So yeah, write down your requests. If you feel necessary, if you feel it's necessary to do so. And most importantly, make sure that you study and research the spirit that you're going to be working with, and doing a ritual too. Okay, very important that you understand the type of spirit you're working with and what abilities that they have. Okay, that they can assist you with. Okay, so make sure that you study the spirit very well, and be very knowledgeable of the type of deity or spirit that you're going to be summoning. Okay, very important that you understand that, so to speak. So now I'm going to get into the templates. The first one is an invocation template, and for this particular template I used the goddess Kali from the Hindu pantheon. Kali is a goddess of spiritual transformation. Okay, she's very powerful, and she is one of my patron goddesses that I personally work with consistently. So I utilized her for a template example. So if you're someone who is thinking about working with Kali, this would be a good template for you if you want to use it. Or if you're someone who has worked with Kali before and you're looking for another idea, you can use it as well. But she's the one that I use for this particular invocation template. So I'm going to go into it. I invoke and call upon the goddess Kali, goddess of alchemy and spiritual transformation. May your presence be known at the moment. I ask of you, goddess Kali, that you will work through me and alongside with me and assist me with addressing my internal obstacles. May I embody your personality, attributes, and abilities to grow and evolve spiritually. With my gratitude, and it is done. All right, so that's the first example of an invocation. So a good tip that I want to point out, when you end your request, always close it out with "and it is done," composed to simply saying, and let it be so, or so it be, etc. Because when you say, let it be so, it's kind of like you're leaving it up to, the universe and other external factors, right? So in other words, your ritual may not even be carried out at all, or you may not get the results that you were seeking, and things of that nature. Okay, because understand that the universe, it operates in its own way. So you have to speak things into existence as if it's already done. So when you say "and it is done," that's pretty much you saying, I confirm that the way that I crafted this request is going to be carried out the way that I crafted it. You see what I'm saying? So it's like you putting a permanent stamp on it, you know what I'm saying, to fully manifest it the way that it needs to be manifested, right? Instead of just leaving it up to the external, okay? So conclude your request with "and it is done," okay? Very beneficial in your requests, okay? The next one is an evocation template in which I utilized the goddess Santa Muerte from Mexico, okay? Santa Muerte is the goddess of death, okay? Not trying to scare anybody who may have never heard of Santa Muerte, but she's the goddess of death. She represents the concept of death itself. I'm going to do a separate episode on her on down the line, as well as with Kali as well. But Santa Muerte is very powerful. She can help you with protection, prosperity, love, obtaining, better health, things of that nature. And she knows all things, okay? She has tons of wisdom, to offer to somebody. She's good for that. So she's a very powerful goddess, okay? And I began working with her this year. She started to make herself known to me in my visions 2.5 years ago, coming into 2024. So 2023, that's when she started to come through, but she didn't fully come through, to stay like she has now. Because one thing with deities and spirits, the further you go into the practice and evolve and get better, spirits from different cultures and civilizations will start to reveal themselves to you and will offer to work with you, okay, when they feel that you are ready, okay? So they'll start giving you dreams and visions, to pretty much get you prepared. Then eventually they're going to come through fully, you know what I'm saying? And some may want to stay permanently, and, be a patron to your journey, okay? So these are things to look forward to as well, as you climb the magical ladder, okay? But Santa Muerte is who I utilize for this template, okay? And this is a protection template that I created, and it goes: I evoke and call upon the goddess Santa Muerte, the goddess of death. May your presence be known. I ask of you, Santa Muerte, that you will establish a hedge protection around me as I deal with current opposition from enemies. May you deal with them accordingly and render justice unto me with my gratitude, and it is done. All right, so that's a basic evocation for Santa Muerte, seeking her protection, okay? Santa Muerte is she's very strict, like Kali and other goddesses, but she also has a loving side, to her nature, just like Kali does. So that's something to consider for Santa Muerte. If you've thought about, working with her, okay. she definitely has a loving side, but she's definitely, strict, in how she teaches, okay, and imparts wisdom, okay. Um, but that was a basic protection evocation, okay. And last but not least is one of my personal incantations that I'm going to share with you all. And this is a particular incantation to dispel anger and low emotions, okay. Um, and this incantation is in Sanskrit, okay. And when you say your incantations, chant them, like a mantra. So chant them, with a vibration, okay, a vibratory, type of tone, okay. So this is how it goes. Aham Samprati Mansi Shantim Prapnomi, and that's it. So, chant your incantations, okay? Because that helps you tap into the frequency of the language, okay? And you can get deeper into a zone, okay? You start to go into a meditative zone as you chant, okay, the incantation, all right? And that is how you're tapping in, okay? So don't just say the incantation, okay? You chant it, all right? But that's all that I have for this particular episode and lesson, okay? I'm gonna upload these templates to the description box of this particular episode so that you can see how to craft them, okay? That's all that I got for this particular lesson. Hope that you all enjoyed it. Whenever you're listening to it, whether it's in the day or at night or whatever time zone you're in, I hope that what was discussed today will be of good benefit to your journey. All right. So until next time, I hope that you all will have a good and safe rest of your day/night. Peace.